We often hear about those charming small towns, those peaceful places.
Where life moves at a slower pace,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
everybody knows their neighbors.
Right. You think, oh, it's so safe, so idyllic, almost like stepping back in time.
But what if I told you
Hmm.
that sometimes beneath that idyllic surface,
Oh,
there are secrets so dark, so unsettling, they'd send shivers down your spine?
okay. Now you've got my attention. Where are we headed today?
Today, we're diving deep into one such town, Villisca, Iowa,
Villisca, Iowa.
a place where in 1912, the very notion of safety and community was shattered
Shattered.
in the most brutal way imaginable.
Ooh, I can already feel the goosebumps forming.
And the more we delve into this case,
Yeah.
the more unsettling it becomes. We're not just talking about a murder.
Hmm.
We're talking about a calculated, methodical massacre that seems to defy all logic.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my interest. Set the scene for us. Who were the victims?
The victims were a family, the Moores, Josiah and Sarah and their 4 children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul.
The whole family.
And to add to the tragedy, 2 young guests, Lena and Enos Stillinger.
Oh, no, they were just there for a sleepover.
Invited for a sleepover, yes.
Imagine thinking you're going for a fun night with friends, and it ends in such a horrific way.
It's a stark reminder that evil can lurk even in the most unexpected places.
It's also hard to grasp that this happened over a century ago, back in 1912. It feels like a different world.
Well, in some ways it was. But certain aspects of human nature, the darkness that can reside within us, that's timeless, unfortunately.
So tell me more about the Moores. Were they a secluded family? Outcasts in some way?
No, not at all. Quite the opposite, actually. Josiah was a successful businessman, well respected in the community. Sarah was active in the church and local events. They were, by all accounts, a happy, thriving family, deeply embedded in the fabric of Villisca.
Okay, so not a family living on the fringes of society. That makes this even more disturbing.
Precisely, it raises the question, who would target such a family and why?
And how was the crime committed? What makes this a massacre, as you called it?
The killer entered the house sometime after midnight, armed with an axe, and systematically murdered each member of the household, starting with Josiah and Sarah, then moving on to the children one by one.
It's chilling to even think about.
The brutality, the precision, the lack of mercy, it all points to something truly sinister.
I remember reading about the killer using the blunt end of the axe, and that detail always stuck with me.
Yes, the blunt end. That's a crucial point. Most axe murders involve the blade, which is quick and efficient, but the blunt end, that suggests something else entirely.
Like what?
Rage, perhaps? Or a desire to inflict pain and suffering. It's a detail that forensic psychologists have analyzed for decades, trying to glean insights into the killer's psyche.
So it wasn't just about ending lives, it was about something more, something darker.
You're catching on. And then there are the details that make this case even eerier.
Go on.
The killer covered all the mirrors in the house and washed their hands in a basin, leaving bloody water behind.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I remember reading about that. Why would they do that?
While some see it as purely practical, a way to avoid leaving traces, but others believe it holds a deeper, more symbolic meaning.
Like what?
A ritual.
It's certainly a chilling thought, isn't it? The idea that the killer wasn't just driven by rage or a desire for revenge, but by something darker, more sinister.
And the fact that this happened in a small town like Villisca where everyone knew each other.
Imagine the fear, the paranoia that must have gripped the community after the bodies were discovered.
I bet everyone became a suspect in their neighbors' eyes.
Precisely. And it's that atmosphere of suspicion, that undercurrent of fear, that we'll explore as we delve deeper into this case.
Okay, so we have a brutal crime, an unknown killer, and a town paralyzed by fear. What happened next?
Well, that's where the investigation comes in, or at least attempts at an investigation. Because remember, this was 1912. Forensic science was in its infancy. The crime scene was heavily contaminated by well-intentioned but ultimately damaging actions from neighbors who rushed to the Moore house after the news broke.
You mean they might have destroyed valuable evidence? Exactly. They trampled through the rooms, touched evidence, unknowingly compromised the scene.
It seems unbelievable now, but back then, even securing a crime scene wasn't standard procedure.
And without the sophisticated tools and techniques we have today, investigators were left with a daunting task.
So they're basically trying to solve a complex puzzle with missing pieces.
A puzzle where every clue seemed to lead to a dead end. And that's precisely why, over a century later, we're still talking about the Villisca Axe murders.
So despite their best efforts, investigators were left with more questions than answers.
And that, my friend, is why the mystery endures.
Well, you've certainly painted a chilling picture for us. We've got a brutal crime, an unknown killer, and a town shrouded in fear and suspicion.
But the real question remains, who was the shadowy figure that wielded that axe, and what drove them to commit such a heinous act?
That's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. We'll examine the suspects, dissect the evidence, and see if we can unravel the tangled threads of this enduring mystery.
Join us as we venture further into the darkness, peeling back the layers of this chilling case and trying to make sense of the senseless.
Last time, we left off with a town in chaos, a brutal crime, and a killer on the loose.
The Villisca axe murders is a case that just grabs you, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I've been thinking about it nonstop since we started prepping for this deep dive.
It's the kind of case that gets under your skin and stays with you.
Yeah, you're right. So where do we go from here? Where do investigators even begin to unravel something like this?
Well, the lack of a clear answer has spawned a whole bunch of theories, each with its own set of complexities and questions.
Oh, I bet. A case like this, it's like a breeding ground for speculation.
Exactly. Every little detail, every inconsistency becomes fuel for another possible explanation.
And that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating, right?
Absolutely. We get to sift through the evidence, weigh the possibilities, and try to piece together what really happened.
All right, so let's dive into some of those theories. What are some of the leading explanations for the Villisca axe murders?
One of the most prominent theories is that the killer was a traveling serial killer, perhaps even linked to other unsolved axe murders from around the same time.
Interesting. So like a transient killer passing through town.
Exactly. There was a string of similar murders happening across the Midwest in the early 1900s. The brutality, the weapon of choice, the seemingly random victims, it all hinted at a possible pattern.
I see. So investigators were looking for connections, trying to find a common thread.
Right. And one name that pops up frequently in this context is Henry Lee Moore, no relation to the Villisca victims.
Okay, I've heard that name before.
He was convicted of axe murders in several other states, and some researchers believe his methods align with the Villisca case.
So a potential match. Did they ever definitively link him to Villisca?
Not quite. While there are undeniable similarities, the timelines and his confirmed whereabouts don't perfectly match up.
So it's not a slam dunk.
Not at all. Critics argue that pinning the Villisca murders on Henry Lee Moore is a convenient way to close a cold case without enough concrete evidence.
It's like trying to force a puzzle piece where it doesn't quite fit.
Exactly. So while the traveling serial killer theory is intriguing, we have to be cautious and consider all the angles.
All right, so if it wasn't a drifter just passing through, what are some other possibilities? Could it have been someone closer to home, someone with a motive connected to Villisca itself?
That's another strong possibility. Remember, Villisca was a small town. Secrets didn't stay buried for long.
Right, everyone knew everyone else's business.
Exactly. And that creates fertile ground for rivalries, betrayals, hidden resentments.
So instead of a random act of violence, we might be looking at a carefully planned attack, fueled by some deeply personal motive.
You're getting it. And in a case like this, understanding the social dynamics of the town becomes crucial.
So who are we focusing on? Who had a reason to target the Moors?
Well, one name that jumps out is Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who visited Villisca shortly before the murders.
I remember reading about him. He had a bit of a troubled past, right?
That's putting it mildly. He had documented mental health issues and an unsettling fascination with young girls.
That's definitely a red flag. And he preached in Villisca just days before the murders.
Yes, which naturally makes him a person of interest. And get this, he even confessed to the crimes years later.
He confessed. Well, that seems pretty open and shut, doesn't it?
Not so fast. The details of his confession are murky, to say the least. Some believe it was genuine remorse, others think he was just seeking attention or maybe even trying to protect someone else.
So his confession might not be as reliable as it seems on the surface.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of his alibi for the night of the murders.
Oh, right. Was he able to account for his whereabouts?
That's another point of contention. There are conflicting accounts from witnesses. Some claim to have seen him in town that night. Others dispute those claims.
So, we have a suspect with a questionable confession, a shaky alibi, and a history of disturbing behavior.
This case is full of twists and turns, isn't it?
Absolutely. It feels like we're getting deeper into the mystery, but the truth is still eluding us.
That's the nature of these cold cases. It takes patience, persistence, and a willingness to follow every lead, no matter how small.
Well, let's keep digging then. Are there any other suspects or theories we should be aware of?
Oh, There are plenty more, and some of them take us even deeper into the heart of Villisca's secrets and rivalries.
Okay, then lead the way. I'm ready to uncover more layers of this mystery. We've explored some pretty compelling theories so far.
From traveling serial killers to a troubled preacher, even a prominent local figure.
Yeah, and we still haven't cracked the case.
And sometimes the most intriguing clues are hidden in plain sight.
What do you mean?
Well, think about the axe itself. The killer brought it to the scene, suggesting premeditation,
Yeah, right.
but then left it behind at the house.
That always seemed odd to me.
Why not take the murder weapon with them? It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Wouldn't taking it make it harder to trace back to them?
Exactly. It's a question that has baffled investigators for over a century.
So what are some of the theories about why the axe was left behind?
Some believe it points to the killer being someone local, familiar with the house, and confident they could escape unseen.
Okay, I can see that. No need to dispose of the weapon if you know the terrain.
Right. They might have felt comfortable enough to just leave it there.
But wouldn't that be a huge risk? I mean, what if someone saw them leaving?
Well, remember, this is a time when people often didn't lock their doors, especially in a small town like Villisca.
True.
It's possible the killer felt they could slip in and out unnoticed under the cover of darkness.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then we have the element of the covered mirrors, which adds another layer to the mystery.
Right. That always seems so eerie to me. Almost ritualistic.
Exactly. And it raises the question, was it purely practical, or was there something more sinister at play?
What are some of the thoughts on that?
On a practical level, some suggest the killer covered the mirrors subconsciously to avoid seeing their own reflection.
Oh, interesting. Like a primal response to the horror they were inflicting.
Precisely. Almost as if they couldn't bear to face the reality of their own actions.
But others interpret it as a deliberate act, right?
Yes, some see it as a ritualistic gesture meant to trap the spirits of the victims within the house.
Oh, wow. That's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
Like something straight out of a ghost story.
And let's not forget those other seemingly insignificant details.
Like what?
The placement of a lamp chimney, for example, found near the axe, untouched.
I remember reading about that, but I didn't think much of it at the time.
Well, on their own, these details might not seem significant, but taken together, they paint a picture that's hard to ignore.
A picture of something darker, something beyond a simple act of violence.
Exactly. They hint at a possible ritualistic aspect to the crime, something that connects to deeper, more primal fears.
It's amazing how these small details can shift our whole perspective on a case.
Absolutely. It's like finding a missing piece of a puzzle. Suddenly, the whole picture starts to come into focus.
Well, whether it was ritualistic or purely practical, the question remains, who committed this horrific crime? And did investigators ever come close to finding out?
Unfortunately, the investigation was plagued from the start. Remember, this was 1912. Forensic science was practically non-existent, and the crime scene was compromised by well-intentioned but ultimately damaging actions from those first on the scene.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine now, but back then, even securing a crime scene wasn't standard procedure.
Exactly. So despite their best efforts, investigators faced an uphill battle.
And with no DNA analysis, limited fingerprinting techniques, it must have felt like searching for a needle in a haystack.
Precisely. They had to rely on eyewitness accounts, which can be unreliable, and circumstantial evidence, which rarely paints a complete picture.
So despite numerous arrests and even a few trials, the case went cold.
And over a century later, it remains one of the most infamous unsolved murders in American history.
Wow, it's incredible to think that despite all these years, the mystery still endures.
And it's not just the unsolved nature of the crime that captivates us. It's those unsettling details, the unanswered questions.
Right, the things we still don't know and maybe never will.
And those whispers of the paranormal that surround the Morehouse.
Oh, right. I almost forgot about that. People claim to have experienced all sorts of strange phenomena there.
Cold spots, disembodied voices, even full-blown apparitions. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, it's hard to deny the heavy atmosphere that permeates the place.
It's like the house itself holds on to the memory of that terrible night.
As if the walls could talk and tell us what really happened.
It's a chilling thought. Makes you wonder if some places can truly be haunted by the past.
Absolutely. And it serves as a reminder that sometimes the most unsettling mysteries are those that remain unsolved. Those that linger in the shadows, whispering their secrets to anyone who dares to listen.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot to think about. The Villisca Axe murders. A case that continues to fascinate and frustrate, even after all these years.
It's a stark reminder that even in the most seemingly peaceful places, darkness can lurk.
And that sometimes there are no easy answers, no satisfying resolutions, just enduring mysteries that continue to haunt us long after the headlines fade.
But even in the absence of definitive answers, the pursuit of truth, the search for understanding continues to drive us. It's what compels us to revisit these cases, to re-examine the evidence, and to never give up hope that one day the truth will be revealed.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into one of America's most enduring mysteries.
And remember, keep those lights on.
Until next time, stay curious, but stay safe.